Hey, it's Mike Brown from the Brain Zooming Group, and here's a little recap of the presentation they talked about in the blog post, in case you're wondering what this is. It's all about 11 steps in 11 weeks for mid-career professionals to start to establish a social media presence. The folks I talked to today, a few of them were on Facebook. They mainly had LinkedIn profiles. Hardly anybody was on Twitter. One person used to blog. So the whole idea here is, in 11 weeks, what 11 steps can you take to start to build out your resume, create a portfolio online, really give yourself a presence. Whole thing is premised on the third model. And if you're a reader here, you've seen this before. This came from Todd Schnick in Atlanta, the whole idea of how do you split up your social media time. So a third of it, the first third, is on basically listening. Get started there and starting to think about what stories that you're going to share online. The second third of the time is about what other sites you can contribute to that others might have. So before you do a blog or do anything of your own, how could you start to participate where there's already an audience? And the final third then of the 11 weeks is sharing your stories, to actually start to put your content out online a little bit more specifically. This is one of those presentations where it didn't work to do a computer. So it's a social media presentation all done in cartoons and on flip charts. So that's why it looks like this. Week 1 of the 11 weeks is my story, and this basically is encouraged everybody to think about what are 7 proof point stories that really tie back to their brand. And if you read a post a couple weeks ago, Scott Burdett was talking about personal branding. This idea came from him about what are 7 stories that you would tell in an interview, you would tell other people to really start to say, what are your strengths? So I said, write them at 300 to 500 words, which is basically a blog post. So in week 1, get started kind of figuring out what are your stories, the content that you're going to start to share initially. Week 2 then, since they all were on LinkedIn already, is start to think about LinkedIn as your home presence. Before they have a home page or a blog or anything else, you can use LinkedIn and make sure that your profile is set up, it's got good words, it's got all your relevant information, it's starting to build from the stories that you will later share. And also encourage them to go look at the apps in LinkedIn that will allow you later to put your blog post in or a SlideShare presentation and integrate those right in. And also start taking a look at some of the Q&A stuff too. Week 3, told them they've got to dive into Twitter and at least get an account, load up an avatar, do a couple of simple tweets, maybe saying what their topic of interest was, is anybody else sharing on that. And then mainly start listening, follow some people, and I gave them a list of folks to start to think about. And just see what's going out on Twitter and talking to them about, they may not get it right now, but it's a great source of information. It's a great source to network across geographies, industries, types of businesses, age groups, incredible source. Week 4 then, told them to go out to Google Reader and start to sign up for some blogs that they'd read through an RSS feed. Basically 5 in their industry, 5 in general business, and 5 just kind of overall lifestyle or other blogs. And said they don't have to stick with those 15 the whole time, but be sure to look for blogs that have got high frequency of publishing, they've got comments, there's some community there, so that again they can start to see how people are sharing stories, how people are commenting, how they're interacting online. Phase 2 is starting to contribute some of the content, some of the things from the stories. So in week 5, they signed up on Twitter already. Start to say, tweet 2 to 3 times a day. Encourage them to retweet. It could be their own ideas, other things that they're finding on the blogs. Just to start to get out there and share content and build an audience that way. In week 6, to really dive into LinkedIn and the question and answer session, or question and answer sections. They basically answer 2 to 3 questions a week, put some questions out there in relevant areas as a way to, again, start to build presence and start to network and build audience as well. One thing I mentioned, as they share this content online, keep track of it. Put it in some kind of an archive file because it can be used elsewhere. Week 7 then, actually get out there and start to comment on some of the blogs that they've been active on. Maybe do 3 to 4 comments a week. Again, with the idea that this can build on some of the answers that they've done in LinkedIn. It could build on tweets. Could also start to be relevant content for blog posts that they might do. Phase 3, weeks 8 through 11, is all about starting to share the stories that they've been working on. So, they've got at least 7 stories. You've got probably 25, 30 tweets of ideas at least, maybe 15 questions and answers and comments. It's time to start to do that and share it in other ways. So week 8, encourage them to go out and look at the blogs that they've been following and start to put out some requests to see if they could do guest blogs. Find out where guest blogs are welcomed, where they might be able to offer those up. And again, that starts to be some content that they can now put back into tweets, they can put into LinkedIn, they can start to really make a presence for themselves. Week 9 then is start to think about an ebook. And we talked about, just because it says book doesn't mean it's 100 pages. It may be 5, 6 pages, could be 3 pages, somebody said. It's, some of the content, some of the stories, some of the experience, it could be presentations, and they can put that on SlideShare. So again, even before you have a blog, you now have got some content out there and URLs that you can be sharing through Twitter. Week 10, encourage them to think about getting a flip video and doing a video version of 1 to 2 of their stories. They can put them out on a YouTube channel. Again, it becomes linkable, it's more content, more places to find them. And then finally, week 11, encourage them to start to think about exploring a blog, maybe through Blogger or WordPress. The thing I always tell people though, before starting a blog is think about how often you'll write in the course of a month, and then write that much before you ever publish to get a sense of will you really stick with it. Because that's the worst thing, to start a blog and then just let it languish, because then that sort of says about your personal brand that you start things and don't finish them. So that's 11 weeks, 11 steps to start to build a social media presence. This will probably turn into an ebook from us for the near future, but I thought I'd at least throw it out there now so you can see what we talked about. This is Mike Brown from the Brain Zooming Group. Take care.